What's up, YouTube? I just got back from watching A Violent Nature. Now, if you haven't heard of this movie, it's okay. I only heard of it because someone mentioned it in a Reddit. What?
What did you do with the do you have that FedEx folder?
It's at the front door.
Oh, okay, cool.
This Reddit user that spoke of this film in these very words said, "This movie fucks." So when someone uses that wording to describe a movie, it makes me enthusiastic to see it. Um, Now, the horror subreddit is not the best at recommending movies. There's so many proclamations of, oh, this movie's great, this movie's awesome, this movie's this and that, and then you watch it and you're like, what the fuck was this person on? But this is a new movie, so because there's a handful of movies that are always recommended in the subreddit, but this one I had not heard of before, and it was new, and it's a Shudder original. So I was like, man, I gotta go watch this. I didn't want to know anything about it. I just liked the name and I liked the cover for the movie, so I had no expectations going into this really. It looked like a stereotypical slasher, and I'm always in the mood for a slasher, especially a new slasher, because there's so many things you can do with the formula to be original, a la uh, the the rise of Leslie Vernon. What's that movie? I haven't seen it in forever. Uh, Fuck, you know what movie I'm trying to talk about, or I'm trying to mention. I can't. The rise of Leslie Vernon. Yes, I think that's the name of the movie. Anyways, I go in this movie matinee, and there's nobody there, and I'm so happy. I'm like, thank God, because it reminds me of the movie going experience I had when I watched Barbarian. And I loved that movie. I love watching movie theater. I love watching movies in the movie theater alone, especially if it's a horror movie. I wasn't anticipating to be scared by this movie. I was just hoping it had some creative kills. So the movie starts off, and I'm like, what is this aspect ratio? Is this some like artsy, pretentious nonsense? Why is this aspect ratio like this? Turns out it actually does serve. It actually does serve in purpose of the story and what the movie is trying to do. Because I feel like had you had a wider aspect ratio, I feel like a lot of the what the movie was trying to do wouldn't have worked. It would have fell way flat. Um, and you hear like the stereotypical kind of like slasher movie dialogue. This movie has intentionally poorly written dialogue. So clearly, the person who made this, like the first like 5 minutes you're watching this, you're like, clearly the person who made this loves slasher films, or at least horror movies. And the shot's just fucking holding there, and there's like background. You don't see the characters. We're just like fucking focused on like this broken house or some shit, we think, and then it zooms out or it pans over, and then we see a golden watch, and then one of the characters in the background, one of the dudes takes it, and then boom, the movie starts. And the movie primes you to be ready, or that primes you to how do I say, the movie is very methodical and slow paced in how it goes about itself, if that makes sense. In the first 5 minutes lets you know that. So the premise is, if you haven't seen this movie, or if you haven't heard of it and you want to be spoiled already, God, this fucking ant bite is itchy. The best way I could describe this movie is it's the thinking man's slasher. So it's a stereotypical slasher movie, except it doesn't have all the exploitative nudity that most slashers have. It still has the violence, but instead of following teenage characters we don't give a fuck about, we're following a serial killer. We're following the Jason Voorhees, if you will. And it's so awesome because the whole time you're watching this, you're like, this is exactly probably what would be happening in a Friday the 13th movie. This is what he would be doing. He'd be slowly walking through the fucking forest. Like, and that's what a large portion of this movie is. You're just following him, and he's walking around. He's walking around, and he's fucking just being a voyeur. He's just fucking watching people. And it's awesome because by the time you finally do get to the kills, it's tremendous. It has one of the most creative kills I've seen as of late, and it also has one of the most disappointing kills I've seen as of late. The first two kills are like, they're whatever, but then you get to the third kill, and it's funny because the third kill is a girl, and she's like talking about earlier in the movie they set it up. She's like, "Why don't you come up?" She's talking to like her girlfriend or whatever, and she's like, "Yeah, well, when you're done swimming, how about you come over and stretch me out?" And then that's what the main killer dude does. I can't remember his name. Jacob? I don't fucking remember. He fucking plunges a his weapons are cool too. He has like this double hook thing. I don't know what you would use that for. I guess it's some sort of logging tool or something. It's some sort of log, like all his killer equipment is like stuff that like firefighters or like loggers would use, so it's really cool. He has like this double hook thing, so he plunges it through her stomach, and then he gets the other side of the hook and then puts it in her forehead, and then like drags like her fucking head through her stomach. It's pretty sick. It's really cool. And then he just fucking yeets her off this fucking mountain cliff face thing. Pretty amazing. Really good. And then the disappointing kill for me was there's like this wood splitter thing. I've never seen this type of machine. It's some sort of wood splitter machine. It's like an axe head, and you like activate the thing, and then it just goes, and then you can like retract it and stuff. So I'm thinking he's gonna put the dude and like have him like splayed out, so it's gonna like cut him from like his genitals all the way up. Nah, he cuts his arm off and then he cuts his head off, and I'm like, man, missed opportunity. Missed opportunity. I was so disappointed. That would have been so gruesome. That would have been like some fucking Terrifier shit. Um, Damn, that shit hurts. Uh, this movie has no score either. It does have some like music playing in the background, whether it's like a radio or a character's like Walkman in particular. But this movie has like no score, and it's extremely effective. I really liked it. It adds to like the slow paced nature of the film. Um, and why I say this is a thinking man's film is one because of its meta type of awareness of slasher films, but also its message, I suppose, or its theme of violence, because the film is called The Nature of Violence, The Nature of Violence, or whatever it's called. And the end, like, so after the one of the last characters gets killed, we we stop following the serial killer, and we start following this girl. And this whole last sequence was so anxiety inducing. I was genuinely just like, God, fuck, God, he could be anywhere. He could be fucking anywhere. Yes, and it was amazing. And the girl, she like survives. She's walking down a road. She gets picked up, and then the girl that picks her up is all talking about, oh, what happened? She's like, it was an animal. And then she's like, well, I've seen worse people walk out of these woods. And then she goes on a whole diatribe talking about how her brother or some sort of relative was attacked by a bear. And then, she's asking the character who survived, asked her how the dude survived. And that's not as important as what she says next. She's like, well, what about the bear? And she's like, well, nobody really knows what happened to the bear. There's this thing that's called henhouse syndrome or henhouse disease or something, basically where an animal will go around just aimlessly killing stuff. It won't even go back to it for food. It will just like kill stuff just for the sake of killing stuff. And then after she like has this whole conversation, the protagonist lady passes out, and then she pulls over, and then she's like, "Oh, I've gotta tend to your wound, otherwise you're gonna die." And then you're like on the edge of your seat because you're like, no, don't stop. You're in the same position as the character. You're like, no, don't stop. And then she just peers out into the distance, and you're just like, fuck, he could be anywhere. No, don't be there. Don't kill us. Let us live. Let us be free. And then the last shot it just pans over, and because the whole point is the dude is looking for his like golden necklace that his mom gave him, and the protagonist lady left it on a gas can. And then it pans over to the gas can, and the golden necklace is not there. But it just goes to talk about like the vapid nature of violence. How violence does not need a reason to transpire. Violence is senseless, and what's great about how it's done in these last sequences of portraying that message is that it's after that conversation and we're peering out into the distance, it just cuts to like random shots of nature, and it's like, oh, it's so beautiful. And it kind of like makes you think: is violence a necessary thing? Is it can it be as beautiful as nature? Or I don't know what it's trying to say. It made me think so many things. Just how ambiguous it was. It was like, wow, these horrible things can exist in this most beautiful place ever. Um, and it's just like, yeah, those last shots were just like, they kind of like linger, they stay with you. And I really liked that. And I was like, huh, that was cool. And then it was weird because I had kind of like a existential experience when I walked outside, because the whole, like I said, the whole movie has no score. And then I walk outside and I'm just walking, I'm just like listening, because this movie has tremendous sound design, like the footsteps, like the bugs and the birds and the fucking the gore, like everything is like, it's so subtle, but it's so effective and it's great. I don't know if I'll ever watch this movie again, because I mean, but it was a great viewing experience. Yeah, so if you haven't watched this movie, go watch it. It's like one of those movies you got to see at least one time. Um, and if you have seen it, let me know what you think about it, because I'm curious. I haven't looked at any online dialogue about this film aside from the dude saying that this movie fucks, and I would have to agree that this movie does indeed fuck. So I'm gonna have to look into this director, see what else he's done, see what else he hopes to do. Um, yeah, man, check out A Nature of Violence. Nature of Violence. The fuck is it called?